The Russian officer's finger rested on the trigger. Snow drifted slowly between him and Sergeant Emma Blake as the frozen forest fell silent. The only sound was the distant rumble of artillery somewhere beyond the mountains. Emma's heart pounded against her ribs. 5 enemy soldiers surrounded her. No cover, almost no ammunition. And the missile guidance system sat in her hands like the weight of the entire war. The officer smiled faintly. "Put the case down." Emma's eyes scanned the trees behind them. 2 soldiers carried suppressed rifles. Another held a combat shotgun. The tallest soldier had a military dog straining against its leash, growling softly. Professionals, not regular infantry. These men were hunters. And she was the prey. The officer stepped closer. "You Americans always think you are heroes." Emma kept her rifle raised. "Funny, we say the same thing about you." One soldier chuckled darkly. The officer's expression didn't change. "You survived the ambush," he said calmly. "That was impressive, but survival means nothing now." Emma noticed something on his uniform. A black wolf insignia. Russian Special Operations. Elite level. Which meant this device was more important than she thought. "Who are you?" Emma asked. The officer looked at her for several seconds before answering. "Colonel Viktor Volkov." The name hit her immediately. Every NATO intelligence officer knew it. Volkov was known as the Ghost of Siberia, a commander linked to covert assassinations, disappearances, and battlefield massacres across multiple war zones. And now he stood only feet away from her. Volkov nodded toward the case. "You have no idea what that device truly controls." Emma tightened her grip. "I know enough." "No," Volkov replied quietly, "you don't." Suddenly, the military dog barked violently. Its handler turned for half a second. That was enough. Emma moved instantly. She threw the metal case directly into one soldier's face and fired 2 quick shots. Bang, bang. One Russian soldier collapsed into the snow. Another screamed, clutching his shoulder. Emma sprinted toward the frozen river as bullets exploded behind her, tearing bark from the trees. "Alive!" Volkov shouted. "Do not kill her." Emma slid down the icy riverbank and crashed hard onto the frozen surface. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she forced herself up and kept running. Gunfire echoed across the valley. A bullet ripped through her backpack. Another shattered ice inches from her boots. Then the frozen river cracked. Emma looked down just as the ice beneath her feet split apart. The world vanished into black freezing water. The cold hit like death itself. Emma gasped underwater as the current dragged her beneath the ice. Her rifle slipped from her hands and disappeared into darkness. She fought desperately toward the surface. Her lungs burned. The heavy military gear pulled her down. Above her, shadows of soldiers moved across the ice, while flashlights searched through cracks. Emma spotted faint moonlight ahead and kicked with everything she had left. Her hand finally burst through thin ice near the riverbank. She dragged herself out, coughing violently. Every muscle shook uncontrollably from the freezing water. But she was alive. For now. Emma crawled behind thick bushes as searchlights swept across the river behind her. They lost visual. "She cannot be far." Volkov's voice roared through the night. Emma pressed herself deeper into the mud and snow, barely breathing. Minutes passed. Then silence. The soldiers moved farther away. Emma collapsed against a tree, exhausted beyond words. Her fingers were turning numb. Hypothermia was coming fast. She needed warmth. She needed shelter. And she needed to protect the guidance device. Emma looked down suddenly. The black case was still handcuffed to her wrist. She almost laughed from disbelief. "You stubborn piece of junk," she whispered. A weak smile crossed her face for the first time all day. Then distant helicopter blades thundered overhead. Emma's smile vanished instantly. 3 Russian helicopters appeared above the forest, their searchlights cutting through the darkness like giant white knives. They were locking down the entire region. She wouldn't survive the night at this rate. Through the trees, Emma noticed faint orange light in the distance. A village. Maybe abandoned. Maybe occupied. Either way, it was her only chance. 40 minutes later, Emma reached the outskirts of the small mountain village. Most buildings were damaged from shelling. Broken windows. Collapsed roofs. Burned vehicles abandoned in the streets. War had destroyed this place long ago. Emma moved silently between buildings until she noticed movement inside an old medical clinic. Light flickered behind the curtains. She slowly raised her pistol and pushed the door open. Inside, an elderly man nearly dropped a lantern in shock. He stared at her soaked military uniform. American flag patch. Blood on her shoulder. Weapon aimed directly at him. For several tense seconds, neither spoke. Then the old man quietly raised his hands. "No soldiers here," he said in broken English. Emma lowered the pistol slightly. "You alone?" He nodded slowly. "My family gone months ago." Emma's body nearly collapsed from exhaustion. The old man looked at her carefully before pointing toward a small stove. "You freeze if stay wet." Emma hesitated. Trusting strangers in war zones got soldiers killed. But she had no choice. Minutes later, she sat beside the stove wrapped in old blankets while the man cleaned the wound on her shoulder. "You are hunted," he said quietly. Emma looked at him sharply. "How do you know?" The old man gave a tired smile. "Because everyone here is hunted." For the first time in hours, Emma allowed herself to relax slightly. Then she noticed a radio sitting on the nearby desk. Russian military frequency. The old man quickly turned it off. Too late. A voice had already come through. "Searching village sector 7, American female confirmed alive." Emma slowly stood. Her eyes locked onto the old man. "You reported me." The man looked horrified. No radio automatic." Outside, engines suddenly echoed through the village. Headlights flooded the streets. Emma rushed to the shattered window. Russian armored vehicles surrounded the clinic from every direction. Soldiers poured out with rifles raised. Volkov stepped from one vehicle calmly, adjusting his gloves. He looked directly toward the building, like he already knew she was inside. Emma's breathing slowed. This wasn't random. Someone had betrayed her. Then the old man whispered something that made her blood run cold. "There is another American here." Emma turned sharply. "What?" Before he could answer, heavy boots thundered upstairs. Emma spun toward the dark hallway as a shadow slowly emerged from the second floor. An American soldier. Tall. Armed. Face hidden beneath darkness. And then the soldier spoke. "Emma, don't shoot." Emma's pistol remained aimed at the shadow standing at the top of the stairs. The room fell silent, except for the distant rumble of armored vehicles outside. Russian soldiers surrounded the clinic. Searchlights swept across the broken windows. And now, an unknown American soldier had appeared from the darkness like a ghost. "Emma, don't shoot." The voice sounded familiar. Too familiar. The figure slowly stepped forward into the lantern light. Emma's eyes widened instantly. "Ryan." Staff Sergeant Ryan Hayes descended the stairs carefully, hands raised slightly. Dirt and dried blood covered his uniform, and a deep scar stretched across the side of his face. Emma could barely believe it. Ryan Hayes had been part of Alpha Team. He was supposed to be dead. Emma lowered her weapon halfway, confusion flooding her mind. "You were in the convoy," she whispered. Ryan nodded slowly. "I survived the blast." Outside, Russian soldiers shouted orders in the snow. Volkov's calm voice echoed through loudspeakers. "Sergeant Blake, your escape is over." Emma ignored it. Her eyes stayed locked on Ryan. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. "You disappeared after the ambush," she said carefully. Ryan avoided her gaze for a second too long. "I got separated." Emma noticed his gear immediately. Full ammunition. Clean rifle. No serious injuries. Too clean for someone who survived the massacre. The old man stepped nervously between them. "You must leave now," he whispered. "Soldiers coming." A powerful spotlight suddenly blasted through the clinic windows. Russian voices shouted outside. The front door shook violently. Emma grabbed Ryan's arm. "Back exit, move." The three rushed through the clinic hallway as bullets suddenly exploded through the front entrance. Wood splintered everywhere. Russian special forces stormed inside. Emma fired twice behind her, while Ryan kicked open the rear door. The freezing wind slammed into them. They sprinted into the snowy alleyways as alarms echoed across the village. "Left," Ryan shouted. Emma followed him between damaged buildings, while enemy soldiers searched street by street. Helicopters roared overhead. Searchlights swept dangerously close. The old man struggled to keep up. Then gunfire erupted nearby. The elderly man collapsed instantly into the snow. Emma stopped in shock. "No!" But Ryan grabbed her violently. "He's dead, keep moving." Emma stared at the old man's motionless body for one terrible second before survival forced her forward again. The guilt hit immediately. Another innocent dead because of this war. Because of her. The three-story apartment block stood abandoned near the edge of the village. Broken walls exposed dark, empty rooms covered in frost. Ryan barricaded the entrance while Emma checked the windows. Russian patrols moved through the streets below. Closer every minute. Emma finally turned toward Ryan. "How did you survive?" Ryan sat quietly for several seconds before answering. "The explosion threw me into the river. I woke up miles away." Emma narrowed her eyes. That sounded possible. But something still bothered her. "You didn't contact command." "No radio." "You didn't search for survivors." Ryan looked away again. There were no survivors. Emma's jaw tightened. "That's not an answer." Before Ryan could respond, the missile guidance case suddenly emitted a soft red light. Both soldiers froze. The device was activating. Emma quickly placed it on the floor. A digital screen flickered alive across the surface. Coordinates appeared. Then a countdown timer. 02-1744. Ryan's face changed instantly. Panic. Real panic. Emma noticed immediately. "What is this?" Ryan stood up too quickly. "We need to destroy it." Emma stared at him. "Why?" "Because if the Russians activate this system." "What system?" Ryan hesitated. That hesitation told Emma everything. "You know what this is." Silence. Outside, explosions echoed closer through the village. Emma slowly picked up her pistol again. "Talk." Ryan rubbed his face anxiously before finally speaking. "That device doesn't guide missiles." Emma frowned. "Then what is it?" Ryan looked directly into her eyes. "It controls nuclear launch satellites." The words hit like a hammer. Emma stared at the glowing device. No wonder both sides were killing for it. This wasn't about one battlefield. This could start World War III. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. How many missiles? Ryan answered quietly. All of them. The room fell silent. Emma suddenly understood why Volkov wanted her alive. The device required NATO authorization codes. Codes stored within special military identification systems. Systems Emma unknowingly carried as part of her classified mission clearance. She wasn't just carrying the key. She was the key. A loud crash downstairs interrupted the moment. Russian soldiers had entered the building. Boots echoed through the lower hallways. Emma immediately grabbed the device. We move now. Ryan blocked her path. Emma listened to me carefully. Something in his tone made her stop. His expression hardened. There's something else you need to know. Emma raised her weapon slowly. What? Ryan's voice became cold. The ambush wasn't random. Emma felt her stomach tighten. What are you saying? Ryan looked directly at her. Someone from NATO sold the mission details to the Russians. Emma's mind raced instantly. No. Ryan nodded once. They knew our route, our timing, everything. Boots thundered up the stairwell. Russian soldiers were almost at the room. Emma backed toward the broken window. Who betrayed us? Ryan's face darkened. Before he could answer, a grenade rolled across the floor. Emma's eyes widened. Move! The explosion destroyed the entire room. Emma crashed through the apartment wall as fire and debris blasted outward into the frozen night. She slammed hard into a snowbank below, barely able to breathe. Her ears rang violently. The world blurred. Burning debris rained from above. Somewhere nearby, Russian soldiers shouted. Emma forced herself up painfully and looked toward the destroyed building. Flames consumed the upper floors. Ryan, she shouted. No answer. Then suddenly, a hand grabbed her from behind and pulled her into darkness between two buildings. Emma spun with her pistol raised. Ryan covered her mouth instantly. Quiet. Searchlights swept across the street seconds later. Russian soldiers ran past their hiding spot. Emma pushed Ryan away angrily. You almost got us killed. Ryan ignored the comment. His eyes focused on the glowing device in her hands. The countdown is speeding up. Emma looked down. 01:52:11. The timer was moving faster now. What happens when it reaches 0? She asked. Ryan hesitated again. Emma grabbed his jacket violently. Tell me. Ryan's voice dropped. The satellite system launches automatically. Emma released him slowly. Horror spread across her face. Entire cities could vanish. Millions dead. And they were trapped behind enemy lines with less than 2 hours left. Suddenly, distant gunfire erupted from the forest outside the village. Not Russian weapons. American weapons. Emma and Ryan looked at each other instantly. Then came the sound that changed everything. A U.S. military helicopter roared over the mountains. American rescue forces had arrived. But Ryan's expression didn't show relief. It showed fear. Real fear. And then Emma noticed something terrifying. Ryan slowly reaching for his hidden sidearm behind his back. Emma's instincts fired before her brain could process the moment. She stepped sideways instantly as Ryan pulled the pistol from behind his back. Bang! The bullet tore past her shoulder and smashed into the wall behind her. Emma fired back without hesitation. Ryan ducked behind a concrete barrier as sparks exploded into the darkness. "What are you doing?" Emma shouted. Ryan's voice echoed coldly from cover. "Give me the device, Emma." The American helicopter thundered above the village, while gunfire erupted from both sides of the battlefield. Russian soldiers opened fire toward the incoming U.S. rescue team as tracer rounds lit up the snowy night. Chaos swallowed the village. Emma crouched behind an overturned truck, breathing hard. Her heart felt heavier than the weapon in her hands. Ryan betrayed them. One of her own teammates. One of the people she trusted. Now everything finally made sense. His clean gear. His survival. His fear when the timer activated. He had known from the beginning. "You sold us out," Emma said quietly. Ryan appeared briefly between shadows. His face looked torn apart by guilt and desperation. "You don't understand." "Then explain." Another explosion shook the street as American soldiers repelled from helicopters nearby. Russian machine guns opened fire immediately. The entire village transformed into a war zone. Ryan looked toward the battle before speaking again. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." Emma aimed carefully at him. "You betrayed Alpha Team." Ryan's eyes filled with anger. "They were already dead." Emma froze. Ryan stepped forward slightly. "You think NATO is innocent. You think this war is about freedom," he laughed bitterly. "Both sides are lying." Emma kept the gun steady. Ryan pointed toward the glowing device. That system was built secretly by both governments years ago. A fail-safe launch network. Invisible satellites carrying enough nuclear weapons to erase entire continents. Emma's stomach tightened. Ryan continued speaking rapidly. But then someone lost control of it. Now both sides want full access before the other does. "And you helped the Russians." Ryan's expression hardened. "I helped myself survive." Those words hit Emma harder than the explosions around them. Ryan Hayes had sacrificed the entire team. For money. For fear. For power. It didn't matter anymore. He had chosen betrayal. A sudden missile slammed into a nearby building, showering the street with debris. Emma barely avoided falling concrete. When she looked back, Ryan was gone. "Damn it!" She sprinted through the alleyways, while the battle intensified around her. American special forces had entered the village now, engaging Russian units building by building. Helicopters circled above while fires spread through the frozen streets. Emma spotted movement ahead. Ryan, running toward the forest, toward the mountains, toward escape. And he wasn't alone. Colonel Volkov emerged beside him from the smoke. Emma stopped instantly. Her blood ran cold. Ryan and Volkov exchanged something quickly before disappearing into the trees together. They were working together all along. Emma raised her rifle. But before she could fire, a powerful explosion erupted nearby and knocked her violently to the ground. Pain exploded through her ribs. A shadow suddenly appeared above her. American soldier. Night vision goggles. Rifle aimed downward. "Identify yourself." Emma coughed hard. "Sergeant Emma Blake, U.S. Army." The soldier immediately lowered his weapon. "Ma'am, we've been searching for you for hours." More American soldiers moved through the smoke, securing the area. Their commander approached quickly. Captain Marcus Reed. Emma recognized him immediately from NATO Operations Command. Reed grabbed her shoulder firmly. "Jesus, Blake, we thought you were dead." Emma looked around urgently. "Ryan Hayes is alive." Reed's expression changed slightly. "We know." Emma stared at him. "What do you mean you know?" Before Reed could answer, the missile device in Emma's hand suddenly emitted a loud warning alarm. 00:59:43. 1 hour left. Every soldier nearby looked toward the glowing countdown. Reed's face turned pale. "Get that thing to the extraction helicopter now." Emma pulled the device closer. "No." Reed blinked. "What?" Emma stared directly into his eyes. "You already knew about Ryan." Reed hesitated. That tiny hesitation told her everything. Emma stepped backward slowly. "You knew someone betrayed the mission." "Emma, you sent us anyway." Gunfire echoed across the village, while snow fell through burning streets. Reed lowered his voice carefully. This mission was bigger than Alpha Team. Emma felt rage building inside her chest. They died because command failed. Reed stepped closer. "We can still stop this." Emma shook her head slowly. "Can we?" Suddenly the radio on Reed's vest crackled loudly. Enemy convoy approaching from North Sector. Volkov's forces were regrouping. And they were coming fast. Reed immediately turned toward his soldiers. "Prepare defensive positions." Chaos erupted again. American troops rushed into cover, while incoming Russian armored vehicles smashed through the outer village roads. Machine guns opened fire instantly. Emma used the distraction to slip away into the forest. "Emma," Reed shouted behind her. But she didn't stop. She couldn't trust anyone anymore. Not Ryan. Not command. Maybe not even her own country. All she knew was this. If the countdown reached 0, millions would die. And somehow she was the only person left who could stop it. The mountain forest swallowed Emma into darkness. Snowstorms intensified across the cliffs, while distant gunfire faded behind her. She moved carefully uphill through freezing winds, clutching the nuclear satellite device beneath her jacket. 00:41:18. Time was disappearing. Emma finally reached an abandoned radar station near the mountain summit. Rusted satellite dishes towered above the snow like giant skeletons. The place had been destroyed years ago. Or so it seemed. A faint light glowed inside. Emma approached silently with her rifle raised. Voices echoed from within. "Ryan." "And Volkov." Emma moved closer beside a cracked window. Inside the station, computer screens flickered across dusty walls powered by portable generators. Maps covered the tables. Satellite coordinates. Launch systems. Global targets. Volkov stood calmly near the main console, while Ryan connected the missile device into a military terminal. Emma's pulse quickened. They were activating it now. Ryan looked nervous. "We don't have much time." Volkov smiled faintly. "History is written by survivors." Emma quietly entered through the rear hallway, weapon ready. Inside the control room, the countdown flashed brightly across the monitors. 00:30:02. Volkov noticed movement first. His smile disappeared. Emma stepped from the shadows, aiming directly at both men. "Step away from the console." Ryan looked almost relieved to see her. "Emma, listen." "Shut up." Snow hammered the station walls outside, while alarms echoed through the room. Volkov slowly raised his hands. "You are too late, Sergeant." Emma's finger tightened on the trigger. "No, you are." But then Ryan suddenly shouted something that froze her completely. "Emma, the launch isn't targeting America." "Silence." Ryan's face looked terrified. "It's targeting Russia." Emma stared at the glowing screens in disbelief. "What?" The countdown continued flashing across the control room. 00:28:44. Ryan stepped slowly away from the console, raising both hands carefully. "It was never about destroying America," he said. The launch targets Russian military cities. Volkov's expression darkened instantly. Emma looked between both men, trying to understand. That makes no sense. Volkov suddenly laughed quietly. A cold, dangerous laugh. You Americans still believe wars are fought between countries, he said. Wars are fought between powerful men. Emma kept the rifle aimed directly at him. Talk. Volkov glanced toward the countdown clock. There are generals inside Russia who want this war to become permanent chaos. If Russian command structures collapse, military factions take control. Civil war begins. Europe burns. NATO responds. The entire world enters endless conflict. Emma felt sick. Millions of innocent people trapped inside a game controlled by monsters. Ryan stepped forward carefully. That's why I stayed alive, he said. I found out what the device really was after the ambush. Emma's voice turned sharp. You betrayed Alpha Team. Ryan looked shattered. I was trying to stop this. Emma's eyes burned with anger. You sold our location to Volkov. Ryan shook his head violently. No, someone else inside NATO already leaked the mission. Volkov contacted me after the convoy attack. Volkov smiled faintly. Your teammate was useful. Ryan ignored him. I played along because I needed access to the launch system. Emma wanted to believe him. But Sarah was dead. Diaz was dead. Her entire team was dead. And Ryan had lied from the beginning. Outside, helicopter blades echoed across the mountains again. Multiple aircraft. Fast approaching. Volkov glanced upward calmly. They found us. Emma's radio suddenly crackled to life. Sergeant Blake, this is Captain Reed. We are approaching your position. Emma grabbed the radio instantly. Do not enter this station. Too late. Missiles streaked through the night outside. Boom! The mountain shook violently. One helicopter exploded above the cliffs, crashing into the forest below in a massive fireball. More gunfire erupted outside. Volkov's reinforcements had arrived. The final battle had begun. Russian and American soldiers clashed outside the radar station, while snowstorms swallowed the battlefield. Inside, alarms screamed louder. 001911. Emma looked desperately across the control panels. There has to be a shutdown command. Ryan rushed toward the main computer. There is, but it requires dual authorization. Emma frowned, meaning. You and Volkov. Emma's blood froze. Volkov smiled. The system was designed to prevent one side from stopping it alone. Emma aimed harder at him. Then authorize it. Volkov's eyes turned cold. No. Ryan slammed his fist against the console. Millions will die. Volkov walked calmly toward the window, overlooking the burning mountains. You think nations survive through mercy. Weakness destroys countries. Emma stepped closer. You're insane. Volkov looked back at her. No, Sergeant Blake. I simply understand humanity better than you do. Outside, explosions lit up the stormy sky. American forces were losing ground. The countdown dropped lower. 001426. Emma's mind raced. There had to be another way. Then she noticed something on the screen. Manual core override. But it was locked behind the launch chamber itself. Deep beneath the station. Ryan noticed it too. If someone manually destroys the core, he whispered, the satellites lose synchronization. Emma looked at him immediately. But Ryan's face darkened. The reactor overload kills everyone inside the chamber. Silence. The meaning hit both of them instantly. Someone would have to stay behind. Volkov slowly reached toward a hidden pistol near the table. Emma saw the movement instantly. Bang! Her shot tore through Volkov's shoulder. The Russian colonel staggered backward with a roar of pain. Ryan tackled him before he could fire again. The two men crashed into equipment as alarms flashed red across the room. Emma sprinted toward the lower chamber door. "Emma!" Ryan shouted. She stopped briefly. Ryan held Volkov down violently while blood spread across the floor. His eyes met hers. "You can still get out." Emma looked at the countdown. 00:09:52. Not enough time. Not for everyone. Outside, American soldiers finally breached the station entrance. Gunfire echoed through the hallways below. Emma slowly removed the photograph from her jacket. Alpha Team smiled back at her once more. Sarah, Diaz, Jackson, Lewis, all gone. She closed her eyes briefly, then looked at Ryan. "Take this." She handed him the photo. Ryan's expression broke instantly. "No. You make it home," Emma whispered. Ryan stood up desperately. "There has to be another way." Emma forced a faint smile. "There never was." Then she locked the reactor chamber door behind her. Warning sirens screamed throughout the underground chamber. Massive machinery surrounded Emma as the nuclear synchronization core pulsed with blinding red light. 00:07:14. She moved quickly across the metal platforms while explosions echoed above. The manual override system stood at the center of the chamber, protected by emergency locks. Emma inserted her military authorization card. "Access DNID." She tried again. "DNID." The system required 2 commanders. Emma laughed weakly. "Of course it does." Above her, distant shouting echoed through the vents. Ryan pounding on the sealed door. "Emma, open it." She ignored him. Her eyes scanned the machinery desperately. Then she saw it. The reactor coolant lines. If destroyed manually, the entire system would overload instantly. But the blast radius would destroy the whole station, including her. Emma loaded the last bullets into her rifle. 00:05:01. Outside, missiles and gunfire shook the mountains continuously. The world stood seconds from disaster. Emma took one final breath, then opened her radio channel. "This is Sergeant Emma Blake of the United States Army." Her voice trembled slightly. "If anyone hears this, tell my family I fought until the end." Static answered. Then Ryan's broken voice came through. "I'm sorry." Emma closed her eyes briefly. "So am I." She aimed at the coolant system and fired. Bang! Warning alarms instantly became deafening. "Core failure DATCTD." Reactor meltdown initiated. The countdown froze. 00:03:33. Outside, every satellite connection began shutting down one by one. Launch systems failed across the globe. Nuclear synchronization terminated. The war stopped in a single moment. But inside the chamber, the reactor began collapsing violently. Flames erupted across the machinery. Emma fell hard against the platform as shockwaves tore through the station. Above her, Ryan screamed her name while soldiers dragged him away from the exploding facility. Emma looked upward through smoke and fire. For the first time in days. Silence. No gunfire. No missiles. Just falling snow beyond the broken ceiling. A peaceful white sky. Emma smiled weakly. Then the mountain exploded. 3 months later. Arlington National Cemetery. Rain fell softly across rows of white military graves. Captain Reed stood silently beside a new headstone, while soldiers saluted in formation. Ryan Hayes stood several feet away, holding the old photograph of Alpha Team in trembling hands. The inscription on the stone read, Sergeant Emma Blake, United States Army. She stood alone so millions could live. Ryan placed the photograph gently beneath the flowers. Tears filled his eyes as he whispered, You changed everything. Far above the cemetery, the clouds slowly parted, and sunlight touched the grave of the soldier who stopped the world from burning.